I offered her $100,000 to disappear, but she took the money and my husband too. I had watched Jack walk out the door in his usual way. Coffee in one hand, briefcase in the other, and that familiar kiss on my cheek. He always left at the same time. Just before 8, it had become routine. Too routine, I never questioned it. After he left, I went about my chores like always. I started with the living room, giving it a quick tidy up. Then I moved into the kitchen to do the dishes from breakfast and wipe down the counters. Everything looked fine. Everything felt normal. I should have known better. By the time I got to the laundry, I was already tired, but it had to be done. There was a mountain of clothes in the basket. Jack's work shirts, Harry's school uniforms, a few of my own. I sighed and rolled up my sleeves. No time to rest. If I didn't get to the laundry now, I'd fall behind. And lunch wasn't going to cook itself. As I pulled the last load from the dryer and began folding the clothes, I came across one of Jack's socks with a large hole near the toe. I couldn't help but laugh a little. "Really, Jack?" I muttered, shaking my head, still acting like a teenager. I'd told him so many times to throw away old socks, but he never listened. If they were washed and folded, they were good enough for him. Men could be so simple that way. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I'd go through his sock drawer and toss the ones that were clearly falling apart. So I headed to our bedroom. His drawer was a mess, as usual. Socks balled up and shoved to the back, mismatched pairs thrown together without care. I started pulling them out, setting aside the ones with holes. I made a mental note to stop by the store the next day and buy a few new pairs for him. That's when something shiny caught my eye. There, in the corner of the drawer, hidden deep inside a rolled-up sock, was Jack's wedding ring. I froze. My fingers brushed against the cold metal as I slowly pulled it out and unwrapped the sock. My heart skipped a beat. I recognized it immediately. It was the ring I had slipped onto his finger 20 years ago at our wedding. The same ring he never took off, or so I thought. "What on earth?" I whispered to myself, staring at it in disbelief. Jack's ring? I turned it over in my hand, feeling its familiar weight, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Why was it hidden like this, neatly tucked into a sock, not just lying around carelessly? This wasn't forgetfulness. This was intentional. Someone had hidden it. He had hidden it. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ring in my hand. My mind was racing. Had he taken it off for some reason? Lost it and found it again? Was he having it resized? None of it made sense. There was only one person who could explain it. I called Jack immediately. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. My stomach tightened. Maybe he was in a meeting? Still, something didn't feel right. I couldn't sit still, so I decided to call his office. I had the number saved from when I used to help him with work-related errands. The receptionist picked up quickly and greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Parker, good afternoon." I tried to keep my voice calm. "Hi there. I just wanted to check on Jack. Has everything been okay at work?" He hasn't mentioned anything unusual to me, but sometimes he hides his stress. You know how he is. The receptionist hesitated for a moment, then said, "Oh, nothing out of the ordinary, ma'am. But we do hope he's feeling better. It's been a while since we've seen him." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying not to sound alarmed. "Well, he hasn't been to the office in several days," she continued. "I assumed he was unwell or on leave. He's such a dedicated worker. We all miss seeing him around. He always greeted me when he walked in. It's been strange not having him here." I forced a laugh. "Ah, classic Jack. Always so dedicated. Yeah, he's just been resting at our home. Needed a break, I guess." We exchanged a few more words, but I barely heard any of them. My mind was spiraling. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat down slowly on the edge of the bed again. Jack hadn't been going to the office. For days. All those mornings I made him breakfast, packed his lunch, kissed him goodbye. He hadn't been going to work. He'd been lying to me, pretending to head out to the office when he had other plans. My hands gripped the ring tightly. My stomach churned. I tried to breathe, but everything felt heavy. If he wasn't going to work, then where was he going? And more importantly, who was he going to see? The rest of the day passed in a daze. I couldn't focus on anything. I left the laundry half folded. Lunch was a disaster. I couldn't eat a bite. Even when Harry came home from school, I found myself staring out the window, waiting to hear Jack's car pull into the driveway. I needed answers, and for the first time in years, I was truly afraid of what I might find. That evening, while I was folding laundry and keeping an ear out for the sound of Jack's car pulling into the driveway, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. "Hey honey, don't wait up for me today. Something came up at work and I'll be late. So sorry." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, my thumb hovering above it. I had been expecting this. Somehow I knew this was coming. But still, reading his lie, written so casually, hit me harder than I'd imagined. He didn't hesitate. Not even a second thought before sending it. I almost cried, but didn't. Instead, I forced my emotions down and typed a response with steady hands. "It's okay, babe. See you later." I felt numb. This was not the first lie. It was just the latest in a long string I had only recently become aware of. My mind kept drifting to the wedding ring I'd found hidden in his sock drawer that morning. The same ring he once promised would never leave his finger. He was hiding something. I no longer doubted it. Despite his message, I stayed up waiting. I couldn't sleep. Not when my heart was tangled in questions and fear. I sat in the living room with the lights off, watching the street through the EIO window, hoping his headlights would appear. But the night dragged on, and at some point, exhaustion took over. I must have dozed off right there on the couch. When I opened my eyes, the soft light of morning was already pouring into the house. I blinked and rubbed my face, startled that I had fallen asleep. I rushed to the bedroom to check if Jack had come home quietly. Maybe I had just missed him slipping into bed, but his side of the bed was still perfectly made. The sheets hadn't been touched. My heart began to pound. Then I smelled coffee. I rushed downstairs, half hopeful and half angry, and found Jack at the kitchen table. He looked calm, relaxed, even cheerful. He was just finishing his breakfast and was walking his plate to the sink. "Oh, morning, honey." He greeted me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't lied to me the night before. He was wearing his wedding ring again. That small silver band was now back on his finger as if it had never disappeared. "You in a rush today?" I asked, still trying to process what I was seeing. The breakfast table had been set for me. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. He'd made my favorite breakfast. "Yeah, honey," he said as he walked over and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "I've got a ton of things to take care of at work, and you were sleeping like a bear, so I decided not to wake you," he said with a chuckle. He smiled, like nothing was wrong, like everything was normal. Well, thanks, Jack, but I wanted to talk to you about something. I began, wanting to finally confront him about the ring, about the lies, but he cut me off mid-sentence. "Sorry, babe, don't hate me, but I really am running late. Can we please put a pin on it?" He was already halfway up the stairs. "I promise I'll try to be home on time tonight so we can talk, okay? But I really gotta go right now." He didn't wait for a response. He just disappeared into the bedroom, and a moment later I heard the closet door open, drawers sliding, then the sound of him zipping his bag. I sat down at the kitchen counter and stared at the breakfast he'd made for me. I didn't feel hungry. I didn't feel grateful. I felt confused, betrayed, and more suspicious than ever. Yes, he was wearing his wedding ring again, but that only raised more questions. I had found it hidden, tucked carefully into a sock, like he was hiding a secret. Life. What kind of man hides his wedding ring during the day and wears it only in the morning? Was this some kind of game to him? I couldn't stop thinking about how calm he was, how smooth his words sounded, like he had rehearsed them, like lying. To me had become second nature. I snapped out of my thoughts when I saw him walking down the stairs, dressed and ready to leave. He had his office bag slung over his shoulder and was already at the door. "Bye," I said quietly. He didn't even turn to respond, just walked out the front door, the same way he always did, leaving a trail of doubt behind him. But something made me pause. As I watched him step outside, I noticed something odd. Jack was wearing winter gloves. In the middle of spring, it hadn't been cold at all. There was no reason for gloves, not unless he was trying to cover something. As soon as the door closed, I raced upstairs. My heart thudded in my chest. I rushed to the drawer where he kept his socks. My fingers trembled as I pulled it open and dug through. And there it was, again, his wedding ring, hidden, in a different sock this time. I stared at it, cold in my hand. My legs felt weak, and I had to grip the drawer just to stay upright. He had done it again. He had lied. Again. And now I knew, this wasn't forgetfulness, this was intentional. He was living two lives. One with me and one somewhere else. Somewhere I was about to find. I had seen enough. Jack had removed his wedding ring again this morning before leaving, just like he had the previous time. This time, though, he had slipped on gloves over his hands, probably thinking I wouldn't notice, but I did. And the second I realized what that meant, my heart dropped. A man doesn't remove his wedding ring unless he's trying to hide something, or someone. I couldn't accuse him outright. Not yet. Not without proof. But the pieces were fitting together in ways I didn't want to admit. My mind spun as I stood there in our bedroom, gripping the edge of the dresser for support. I couldn't breathe. My hands went to my head, fingers tightening in my hair. I had only one choice now. I quickly got dressed, threw on my coat, and grabbed my bag. If Jack was lying, I needed to see it for myself. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want half-truths. I wanted the truth, no matter how painful it would be. I left the house quietly and walked briskly to the bus stop just down the road. I knew he couldn't have gone far. And then I saw him, standing there just ahead of me, completely unaware that I was watching him from across the street. He was checking his phone like everything was normal, like he wasn't sneaking around behind my back. A few minutes later, a bus pulled up. I watched as he boarded. Not the one he usually took to work, but a different one entirely. That only confirmed my fears. I waited a beat, then crossed the street and climbed on board through the back door. The bus was crowded, thankfully, which made it easier to hide. I kept my head down and sat as far away from him as I could, constantly glancing in his direction to make sure he didn't see me. He was still focused on his phone, thumbs moving quickly, probably texting her. I felt sick. After what felt like an hour, though it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes, Jack stood up. I waited until he got off the bus, then quickly followed. We were miles away from home now. The neighborhood was unfamiliar. Quiet streets, modest homes lined in a row. I kept my distance, ducking behind trees and hedges as I watched him walk. Finally, he stopped in front of a small house. He looked around, paranoid, and then rang the doorbell. A moment later, a young woman opened the door. I froze behind a tree. She looked young, so young. She couldn't have been older than her late 20s, maybe even younger, and the way she smiled when she saw Jack. It was a smile meant for someone loved, not a friend, not a coworker, a lover. Then Jack pulled her into his arms. His hands went low, right to her waist, and they kissed, deeply, passionately, like nothing else in the world mattered. My stomach turned. Before I could stop it, I leaned over and threw up in the grass beside the tree. The truth hit harder than I had expected, and it left me shaking. My husband was cheating on me, and not just emotionally. It was physical, intimate, real. He had chosen someone else, someone younger, prettier, fitter, someone who wasn't me. And what's worse, he had done it all while pretending to go to work, leaving our son and me every morning with a kiss on the cheek and a lie in his mouth. I wanted to march across the street. I wanted to bang on the door and drag them both out into the open. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because I knew, if Jack found out I had been following him, if he realized I knew, he might walk away without a second thought. He might decide he was done with me and our marriage. And I wasn't ready to lose everything. Not yet. So instead of storming in, I did something else. I stepped into a nearby cafe across the street from the house. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink and sat by the window, my eyes fixed on the house like a hawk. Hours passed, and I didn't move. At around 7, the front door opened again. Jack stepped out, kissed the woman one more time, and then left, just like that, like it was normal, like she was his real home. The woman stood in the doorway, watching him go, then turned back and went inside. I waited a few more minutes, then got up, paid my bill, and left the cafe. I wasn't sure what I was going to say. I didn't even know if she would open the door. But I walked to her house, stood on her porch, and knocked firmly. The door opened a moment later. She was the same woman. Up close, she looked even younger than I'd thought. She smiled, polite, unsuspecting. "Yes," she said. "Can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "My name is Miriam," I said quietly. "You don't know me, but I saw you with my husband, and I know what's going on between you two. I just need to talk to you. Can I please come inside?" Her smile faded. Her brows drew together in confusion. "Excuse me?" she said, her tone sharper now. "I think you've got the wrong address. I don't know what you're talking about." She started to close the door, but I reached out and stopped her gently. "Wait, please. The man you're dating, his name is Jack, right? He's my husband. We've been married for 20 years. I held up my left hand, showing her my wedding ring. "And he's been lying to both of us." Her face changed instantly. Shock, fear, realization. She looked like someone had just yanked the ground out from under her feet. I pulled out my phone and showed her pictures of Jack, our wedding photos, candid shots, and finally, a photo I had taken of the ring in the sock drawer. "He takes it off every morning," I told her. "Hides it so he can be with you." She stared at the photos, her hand covering her mouth. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." And I knew. She hadn't known. Not really. But now she did. I had just finished making my case to Tessa when a small voice broke through the tension in the room. "Who are you?" I turned to see a little girl standing in the kitchen entrance. She looked no older than 6, with bright blue eyes that mirrored Tessa's. But what made my stomach drop was the sight of her bald head, the dark hollows under her eyes, and the pale skin that seemed too fragile for a child her age. "When are we going to start watching cartoons?" she asked, her voice innocent and cheerful. "Are you joining us?" "Hi, I'm Lily." The sight of her hit me harder than I expected. This wasn't just a random affair. It was something deeper, more complicated. Tessa's face softened as she answered, though the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're almost done here, sweetie. How about you go inside and wait?" Lily nodded and skipped off, leaving me with a mix of emotions I couldn't shake. The sight of the little girl had pulled at something deep inside me, something I couldn't ignore. "Is she your daughter?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. I couldn't help myself. I needed to know. Tessa's demeanor immediately hardened. "That's none of your business," she snapped, avoiding my gaze as she stood. "Please leave. Don't show up here ever again. Goodbye." I didn't move. My thoughts were still on Lily, on her sickly appearance. I couldn't just walk away without saying something more. "I see she has cancer," I said, my words soft but full of concern. Tessa recoiled at my touch when I reached out to her. "Don't touch me," she hissed. "Just leave." But I wasn't backing down. "I can help you," I said, looking around the modest home. It was clear Tessa was struggling. Faded wallpaper, secondhand furniture, a life barely scraping. "Hasim, if you leave my husband, I'll pay for Lily's treatment. Fully." Tessa froze. I could see the hesitation in her eyes. "I received an inheritance from a distant relative. Jack doesn't know about it. A little over $100,000 after taxes. I'll give it to you in cash if you leave Jack and never come back." Tessa's eyes filled with tears as she glanced toward Lily's picture. After a long pause, she nodded. "Well then, I'm guessing it's a yes," I said, trying to sound upbeat, though my heart ached. "I'll meet you tomorrow at 2 with the money. Does that work?" Tessa nodded, wiping her tears away. I left her house with a heavy heart, hoping that my offer would be enough to make things right for Lily. The next day, I returned and handed Tessa the money. She accepted it, promising me she'd walk away from Jack's life for good. I felt a strange sense of relief, like the weight on my shoulders had lifted a little. The days passed and Jack seemed unaffected by the meeting with Tessa. But I noticed one small change. He stopped removing his wedding ring before leaving for work. For a moment, I thought maybe I had fixed things. Maybe everything would be okay. But that feeling didn't last. 4 days after my meeting with Tessa, I was putting away laundry when I saw it. His wedding ring, tucked away in a sock in the back of his closet drawer, just like before. My heart sank. He hadn't stopped seeing her. The lies were still there. And everything I thought I had fixed had crumbled. My worst fear had come true. I drove to Tessa's house without a second thought. Anger surged through me. I couldn't let it go, not when I'd found Jack's ring hidden in that drawer. I was done pretending I didn't know what was happening. I needed answers, and I was getting them now. I marched up to the door and began banging on it, my fists clenched tight. A few moments later, I heard heavy footsteps approaching. Then, to my surprise, Jack appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide in shock as if he had seen a ghost. "Miriam, what are you doing here?" he stammered. "What am I doing here?" I snapped, barely holding back my fury. "Has your office moved? It's time for you to give me some damn answers, Jack. How the hell did you end up here when you were supposed to be at work?" Before he could respond, I heard a voice from behind him. "Jack, who's there?" My heart dropped. Tessa stood next to him, looking completely at ease. I couldn't hold it in. "Wow, so this is how you follow through on your promises?" I threw a disgusted look at her. "You manipulative homewrecker. How dare you come back after you promised? You'd leave this town forever? You thought I wouldn't find out?" Tessa crossed her arms and gave me a cold glare. "Your wife came to meet me 4 days ago after you left, Jack. She offered me $100,000 to leave you and never come back. She said she'd pay for Lily's chemotherapy." I froze, shocked. "What the hell? $100,000? Jack's voice rose in disbelief as he turned to look at me. "Where did you get that money? And you bribed her?" "Look, Miriam, you're a good woman," Tessa continued, her tone softer now. "And I should have listened to you. I wanted to, but I couldn't forget Jack. I love him. I couldn't just walk away." My chest tightened at her words. "You heard her, Jack, didn't you? She loves you. After just a few months?" My voice broke. "Come on, Jack. We've been together for over 20 years. How can you throw all of that away? For her? For someone who is 20 years younger than you? Please, come home with me. I'll forgive you. For Harry's sake, don't do this." Jack avoided my gaze, his face unreadable. "I respect you, Miriam. I do. But the love between us, it's gone. I love Tessa, and I don't feel the same way for you anymore." I felt like the world was crumbling beneath my feet. "You're really going to do this? You really think this is love? After 6 months? What about our son, Jack? What about him?" Jack sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I will support you and Harry after the divorce. But this relationship is over, Miriam. I'm done lying to you. Don't you see what she's trying to do?" I screamed, my voice cracking. "She's brainwashed you, Jack. I won't beg. And you..." I turned to Tessa, my rage spilling over. "I want my money back. Every penny." Tessa looked away, her expression uneasy. I don't have it with me now." "What do you mean you don't have it?" I shouted, my voice rising. "You better get me my money, Tessa. Every single penny." But there was nothing left. The anger, the betrayal, it all felt pointless now. Jack had made his choice. And Tessa, she had won. I left Tessa's house feeling a storm of emotions swirl inside me. My hands trembled with fury as I heard her promise to pay me back, but I couldn't stop the bitterness rising in my throat. How could she dare show up at my door after everything? After I'd offered her money to leave and she had taken it to treat her daughter. Jack stood by her side, his arm around her, a picture of betrayal. His eyes narrowed as he tried to shield her, his voice laced with frustration. "She says she'll pay you back, Miriam. Stop harassing us." The audacity of it all made my blood boil. Didn't she promise to leave, to never come back? Instead, she had taken my money and used it on herself, on Lily, and now she stood here, taunting me. Didn't she make another promise she failed to keep? I snapped, my voice rising. "How dare you spend my money and then show up at my door?" I felt the rage boiling inside me, threatening to spill over. I knew if I didn't leave immediately, if I stayed another second, I'd do something I'd regret for the rest of my life. I turned to Tessa, seething, and gave her one final warning. "You better return my money as soon as possible," I said through gritted teeth, before storming out of the house. The days that followed felt like a blur of numbness. Jack had moved out, taking his things, and now he was living with Tessa and her daughter. When he came by to tell me about the divorce papers, I didn't shout, didn't cry. I simply nodded, as if I had accepted the reality of what was happening. But inside, a cold fire burned. The betrayal, the hurt, it wasn't over. It wouldn't be. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. I could feel a plan forming in my mind. Something darker, something that would finally make Tessa pay for what she had done. One night, when I was home alone, I made a decision. I logged into the dark web, my hands steady, even though my heart raced. I bought a vial of poison. It was discreet, quick-acting, and nearly impossible to trace in blood tests. As soon as the package arrived, I could hardly contain my anticipation. I was going to make Tessa feel the pain I had been living with. But I needed the right moment, and I found it when Jack called to tell me he was taking Harry out for the day. "So, where are you two planning to go?" I asked, my voice calm, even though inside my thoughts were already turning. "I want Harry home by 8, Jack scoffed. "Really, Miriam? You think I can't take care of my own son?" His voice was defensive, but I didn't let it affect me. "We're going to the zoo. Tessa's going to the gym after work. We'll drop off her gym bag, and then Harry and I will head to the zoo. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to use the bathroom." "Okay, fine," I said, keeping my tone steady. "You know the way. Just be careful." As soon as Jack disappeared, into the house I rushed to my room. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was it. I grabbed the vial of poison, holding it tightly in my hands. My hands shook slightly, but I had come too far to back out now. I drove to Jack's car where Tessa's gym sipper was lying unattended on the passenger seat. I didn't hesitate. I emptied the contents of the vial into the bottle, watching the liquid mix with the water. This was how it was going to end. Tessa would drink it, she would suffer, and I would be free of the woman who had destroyed my life. I stayed behind as Jack and Harry left for their outing. I stood in the doorway watching them go, a smile creeping across my face. Finally, things would be right. But the phone call came much sooner than I expected. My phone rang, and I saw Jack's name on the screen. My stomach dropped. "Miriam, please come to the city hospital now." Jack's voice sounded frantic, a sharp contrast to his usual calm. I don't know what happened. Harry said he was thirsty, and I only had Tessa's sipper in the car, so I gave him some water from that. And now, he passed out. He's not responding. I tried everything. Please come to the hospital." I felt my breath catch in my throat. What do you mean?" I stammered, my mind going blank. "I don't know what happened, Miriam," Jack repeated, his voice breaking. "I don't know why he collapsed. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, just get here." The phone slipped from my hand and I sank to the floor. Horror washed over me like a wave. My mind scrambled to make sense of it, but there was no denying it. I had made a terrible, unforgivable mistake. The poison hadn't gone into Tessa's hands. It had gone into Harry's. My son had drunk from that bottle. The tears began to flow as I realized the magnitude of what I had done. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a painful reminder of the devastation I had just caused. I had poisoned my own child.